2020, Year of the Metal Rat. When people were enjoying the new year, no one expected the horrific deaths that awaits. The rat is the first sign of the Chinese Zodiac. This represents new beginnings. That means this year should be a good year for fresh start. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. But what happened was far from anyone's imagination. Everything did change. We had the new normal that year, but the stakes were really high. Some didn't make it through the change. They say that new beginnings means something has to end. Many businesses close out. However, many new businesses emerges. Businesses that utilizes online websites and apps. 2020 was full of death and anguish, but we are stronger, and humankind had always made it through thick and thin. The loss were too much to bear, so that year had been called the Year from Hell. This is Bench Lady, your host, and let us take a look at the top 8 events that shocked the world in 2020. Number 8. Taal Volcano Eruption. The eruption of Taal Volcano in Batangas, Philippines on January 12 was a pre-magmatic eruption from its main crater that spewed ashes across Calabarzon, Metro Manila, and some parts of Central Luzon and Ilocos region. The locals have always known the volcano was active, but it hasn't erupted for a very long time since 1977. Classes were suspended and people were evacuated. Seismic swarms began at 11 a.m. Stronger explosion began around 3 p.m. that spewed an ash column exceeding a kilometer high. By 7:30 p.m., the alert status was upgraded to alert level 4 due to the continuous eruption generated a tall 10 to 15 kilometer with volcanic lightning that rained wet ashfall. The volcano generated 2,484 volcano-tectonic earthquakes. The strongest is at 4.1 magnitude. This resulted in numerous fissures or cracks appeared across different barangays in the Batangas. The water in the main crater lake on Volcano Island had drained. The upward movement of the magma causes ground deformation that led to portions of the water in the Pacific River being drained. The Department of Agriculture in the Philippines reported an estimate $60.1 million damage to crops covering 2,722 hectares, which includes 1,967 animals. Fisheries in the Taal Lake lost $31.4 million. That's a total of 15,033 metric tons of fish. The major product, coffee and pineapple plantation, took about $17.48 million losses in profit. The Filipino staple food, rice, also suffered $109,985,000 losses. Corn industry had $1.7 million loss in profit. Acres and acres of land destroyed. Livelihood and homes covered in thick ashes. The once green and colorful Batangas had turned gray. The area was a ghost town. Residents in Metro Manila and Laguna were also affected with the ash fall. People complaining of damaged windshield and scratches all over their vehicles and filthy air filters. Pedestrians also complained of shortness of breath and painful eyes. So many lost their homes and livelihood. Mask and face shield at this time cost as much as $5, but the worst is yet to come. Like the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. Number 7. Chadwick Boseman's death. An outstanding actor in a motion picture, a very famous hero in the well-beloved Black Panther. Chadwick Aaron Boseman was born and raised in Anderson, South Carolina. Before being an actor, he had always loved acting and directing as he studied acting to learn how to relate to actors. He even traveled to Ghana with his professor Mike Malone to preserve and celebrate rituals with performance on a proscenium stage. Graduated from New York City's Digital Film Academy. From 1993, he continued his passion in theater, directing, and acting. His hard work paid off as his role in Black Panther was a perfect fit for him. The audience loved him. During this movie, he was regarded as one of the world's most influential people. Black Panther was one of the highest grossing films. He perfected the portrayal of a man raised to be a king. During the making of the movie, his co-actor and staff sees him not as an actor but as Black Panther himself. Whenever he played the role, he made sure that he is Black Panther inside and out. The world was shocked and saddened when they heard about the actor's death. Little did they know, the actor was diagnosed with colon cancer. A very few of the people that knew him knows that he was was sick. Even during multiple surgeries and chemotherapy, he still continued to work, as his work was more than that. It was his passion. When you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Boseman died at his home as a result of complications related to colon cancer on August, with his wife and family by his side. A public memorial service was held on September in Anderson, South Carolina. The day after Boseman died, the tweet in which his family announced his death on his Twitter account became the most liked tweet in history, with over 6 million likes in under 24 hours, and had over 7 million by August 31. On November, to honor what would have been Boseman's 44th birthday, Marvel changed the studio's logo animation in the opening of Black Panther on Disney to include images of Boseman from the film, as well as his appearances in Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. Number 6. Locust swarms in East Africa and parts of India and Asia. The outbreak of desert locusts threatens the food supply across the regions of East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Indian subcontinent. The outbreak is the worst in 70 years in Kenya and the worst in 25 years in Ethiopia, Somalia, and India. The plague began in June 2019 and continued into 2020. In April 2020, travel and shipping restrictions hamper efforts to control the locusts, preventing the transport of pesticides, equipment, and personnel. Countries and intergovernmental organizations have instituted extensive aerial and ground pest control in an effort to lower the damages that these pests have been inflicting to crops. The locusts had larger muzzles and longer wings to travel up to 130 kilometers a day in search of new vegetation in moist weather. They are always hungry and breathe profusely, which makes them really scary. By far, they look like sandstorm, but they are really hungry pests ready to feed on crops. It takes days for crops to grow and be ready for harvest, but a large swarm can eat 160,000 tons of food each day. This amount of crop would feed 800,000 people for a whole year. In total, 23 countries were affected. Number 5. Hurricane in United States. The strongest Atlantic storm of 2020, Hurricane Iota, and the latest Category 5 storm ever recorded in the Atlantic. The 2020 Atlantic hurricane season generated an extraordinary 13 named storms, highest on the record, 13 hurricanes, and 6 major hurricanes. The 2020 season was notable not only for its record number of named storms, but also for its record number of rapidly intensifying storms. The U.S. suffered 12 landfalls by named storms in 2020. 6 hurricanes made a U.S. landfall. Every single mile of the mainland U.S. Atlantic coast from Texas to Maine was under a watch or warning related to tropical cyclones at some point in 2020. Hurricane Laura was the strongest and most damaging landfalling U.S. hurricane of 2020. With 150 miles per hour winds, she landed in the U.S. on August. Another powerful hurricane made its landfall on October. Hurricane Delta with 100 miles per hour winds. Insurance broker estimate that Laura caused $16 billion in damage and Delta $4 billion alone. It is estimated the total U.S. damage from 2020's hurricane and tropical storms was $37 billion. Flooding from Hurricane Eta's rain killed at least 215 people and left 49 missing. These hurricanes just kept on coming. The community was still struggling to cope up with the damages of the previous hurricane. Then another one comes along. These hurricanes severely affected more than 4 million people, destroying tens of thousands of houses, damaged or destroyed hundreds of bridges and roads, and wiped out vast areas of productive farmland. When nature strikes, humankind bows. In her hands, we are nothing but bare and defenseless creatures. Number 4. Beirut Bombing. On August 2020, 204 deaths, 7,500 injuries were recorded as a large amount of ammonium nitrate stored at the port of the city of Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, exploded, costing $15 billion in property damage and leaving an estimated 300,000 people homeless. Blood and destructions were evident everywhere. Buildings pulverized and vehicles were were flipped and sent flying. A cargo of 2,750 tons of the substance, equivalent to around 1.1 kilotons of TNT, have been stored in a warehouse without proper safety measures for the previous 6 years. This cargo was previously confiscated by the Lebanese authorities from the abandoned ship MV Rosses. The shipment had been ordered by an African explosive manufacturing company for mining in Mozambique. Ammonium nitrate is one of the world's most widely used fertilizers. It is also the main component in many types of mining explosive mixed with fuel oil and detonated by an explosive charge. Ammonium nitrate does not burn on its own. It acts as a source of oxygen that can accelerate the combustion of other materials. At a high enough temperature, ammonium nitrate can violently decompose on its own. This process creates gases including nitrogen oxide and water vapor. It is this rapid release of gases that causes an explosion. It's relatively difficult for a fire to trigger an ammonium nitrate explosion. The fire would need to be sustained and confined within the same area as the ammonium nitrate priels. The priels themselves are not fuel for the fire. They would need to be contaminated with or packed in some other combustible material. On the afternoon of August 4, 2020, a fire broke out in Warehouse 12 at the port of Beirut. This warehouse stored the ammonium nitrate that had been confiscated from MV Rosses, alongside a stash of fireworks. At first, it looked like some big fire from afar. Humans are naturally curious, so the normal reaction in our millennia was to stop and take a look. Many took videos to upload in social media platforms. CCTV recordings show a number of people were curious enough to stare at their glass wall and observe the giant smoke. They say curiosity killed the cat. The innocent curious bystander and observant was oblivious of the dangers that await. Some are even seen calling their friends to watch the smoke reach the sky. Then, the unthinkable happened. The warehouse exploded, sending strong, horrific shock waves across Beirut. A mushroom of red clouds are seen in the area. Nitrogen dioxide is evident, and the many curious bystanders were hurt, glasses shattered, lives were taken. The blast was felt in Turkey, Syria, Israel, Palestine, and parts of Europe, and was heard in Cyprus, more than 240 kilometers away. The explosion was considered one of the most powerful artificial non-nuclear explosions in history. It rocked central Beirut and sent a red-orange cloud into the air, which was briefly surrounded by a white condensation cloud. The explosion overturned cars and stripped steel frame buildings of their cladding. The explosion destroyed a section of shoreline and left a crater roughly 140 meters in depth. More than the cause was the reality that so many lives were taken, injuries irreversible, trauma that will haunt residents for the rest of their lives. Number 3. Death of the legendary basketball player Kobe Bryant. On January 26, a Sikorsky S-76B helicopter crashed in the city of Calabasas, California. The helicopter was from John Wayne Airport to Camarillo Airport. 9 people were on board, including the pilot. Among them was the retired professional basketball player Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna. Everyone on board was killed on impact. They were heading to a basketball game at Bryant's Mamba Sports Academy in Newbury Park. There, Bryant was scheduled to coach Guyana's team. It was a very sad event, not just for the family, but for basketball in general. Kobe Bryant have been a legend in court, regarded as one of the greatest players of all time. He helped his team win 5 NBA championships. He was an 18-time All-Star, 15-time member of the All-NBA team, 12-time member of the All-Defensive team, 2008 NBA Most Valuable Player. Basketball runs in his blood, as his father was a former NBA player. During the investigation, the helicopter was not fitted with a flight data recorder or cockpit voice recorder. It was not required to have one. Toxicology testing from the pilot showed the absence of ethanol in the liver and muscle. Drugs was also not detected in the liver. Viewable sections of the engine showed no evidence of an uncontained or catastrophic internal failure. However, on the morning of January 26, 26, Los Angeles Police Air Support Division had grounded its police helicopter because of the poor visibility and low ceiling. Closer to the site of the crash, the cloud top extended up to 730 meters above mean sea level, meaning that aircraft between those two altitudes would be enveloped in clouds. The last transmission made by the pilot was that he then advised air traffic control he was putting the aircraft into a climb to avoid a cloud layer. Around 200 people gathered at the foot of the hill close to the crash, wearing Bryant's jersey and holding basketballs. Jerseys, dedicated basketballs, teddy bears, flowers, and candles were all laid down to memorialize Bryant. Many artists performed songs dedicated for the athlete during their performance. For his fans, he is irreplaceable. Number 2. The Australian bushfire. Australia is not new to bushfire. Bushfires in Australia can occur all year round. Black summer this season has been worse than usual. As of March 2020, the fires burnt an estimated 18.6 million hectares, destroying over 5,900 buildings, including 2,779 homes, and killed at least 34 people. Economists estimate that the Australian bushfire may cause over 103 billion Australian dollars in property damage and economic losses, making the bushfire Australia's costliest natural disaster to date. The worst hit state was New South Wales, affecting more than 5 million hectares, destroying more than 2,000 homes, and forcing thousands to seek shelter elsewhere. Multiple states of emergency were declared across New South Wales. Reinforcements from all over Australia were called in to assist fighting the fires and relieve exhausted local crews. Firefighters, supply and equipment from Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, and the United States, among others, helped fight the fires, especially in New South Wales. Nearly 3 billion animals were killed or displaced during Australia's devastating bushfire of the past year. It was the worst wildlife disaster in modern history. It was hard for humans to recover, harder for the animals. Some animals will go extinct due to loss of habitat. Number 1. 2020 pandemic. We are in the new millennium. New drugs and machinery for healthcare have been invented, but what we currently have was not enough to fight the deadly COVID-19. It was unlike any the world had ever seen. A novel coronavirus outbreak was first documented in Wuhan, Hubei province, China in December 2019. At first, everyone thought that the virus originated in a wholesale wet market in Wuhan, China, called the Wunan Seafood Wholesale Market. Wuhan was known to be selling wild animals and their meat. It had a wild animal section where live and slaughtered species were for sale. Later, there were issues that the virus might have been from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a high-security facility in the heart of the city, but this was never proven. Some now believe that COVID-19 is a bioweapon. At first, the doctors in China were restricted in sharing information about the spread of the new virus. They were punished if they shared information about the new disease. A concerned doctor had posted his findings about his patient with pneumonia cases of unknown cause. A subsequent Chinese official inquiry exonerated him. Li Wenliang wrote in a private WeChat group of his medical school classmates, 7 confirmed cases of SARS were reported from Wuhan Seafood Market. He also posted the patient examination report and CT scan image. He added, the latest news is, it has been confirmed that they were coronavirus infection, but the exact virus strain is being subtyped. Li asked the WeChat group members to inform their families and friends to take protective measures, with requesting discretion from those he shared the information with. He was upset when the discussion gained a wider audience than he had hoped. On January 3, 2020, police from the Wuhan Public Security Bureau investigating the case interrogated Li, issued a formal written warning censuring him for publishing untrue statement about 7 confirmed SARS cases at the Wuhan Seafood Market. He was made to sign a letter of admonition promising not to do it again. The police warned him that any recalcitrant behavior would result in a prosecution. He published his experience in the police station with the letter of admonition on social media. His Posts went viral and users questioned why the doctors who gave earlier warnings were silenced by the authorities. The interference of the police only worsened the spread of the virus. If only those doctors were not reprimanded on telling the population the dangers that awaits them, the general public would have worn masks and face shield earlier. The world would have been informed sooner. There would be more than one voice for healthcare, especially if it concerns the life of many individuals. One should be bold and courageous in reporting unusual clinical presentation. He was one of the whistleblowers and was the most influential during the COVID-19 outbreak. He died serving the Chinese people. On January 30, 2020, the Director General of the World Health Organization declared the outbreak of COVID-19 to be a public health emergency of international concern and issued a set of temporary recommendations. The COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic has led to mass travel restrictions, social distancing, and other unprecedented preventive measures. Businesses closed down because people needed to stay at home. Many countries were on lockdown. The economy went down. The world started to recognize the efforts of medical frontliners and their efforts in fighting the disease. We are battling enemies we cannot see. Worldwide death tolls is 2.6 million with 96.2 million confirmed cases. These numbers is still increasing as the virus is still present. Life is too short. We can never be too secure since life is always changing. We are in modern times, yet there are cases we still can't handle. No matter the challenges that life brings, we must stay strong. Through the darkness, we find light. This is Bench Lady. Don't forget to subscribe. Do not hesitate to comment your suggestions below. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. See you in our next top 8 rank review.